and writer and academic Mo Lovatt. And there they both are there. Great to have both of you here with us, and as always, so much going on in the papers. So Nigel, just kicking off with you then, looking at the Mirror there, West Street 10-year plan to fix ailing NHS. So is it something that the government is missing? Are they missing a trick? Does Labour have all the answers, or is it just all talk?
Well, certainly Labour's got one of the answers. Yes, you're right there, Vanessa. It seems the government are missing a trick. So what West Streeting is saying is that what we should be doing is to cut hospital waiting lists now standing at over 7 million, is to use the spare capacity that exists in private hospitals. And he estimates that at about 233,000 procedures they could carry out a year. Now, the reason that I did this interview with him, I was being really impressed with some of the language he's been using. Things like saying the NHS is a service, not a shrine, it must reform or die. And most politicians aren't courageous enough to take on the NHS because voters are still quite sentimental about it. So the whole point of this was to actually see what kind of things that the Shadow Health Secretary is planning should Labour get into government. But it seems like he'll get it in the neck from the left of his party for using the private sector. But if that means patients can be treated faster and still for free, it seems like something worth trying.
Absolutely. And now moving on then to the Observer, so more politics here, Mo. And interesting headline here in the Observer there. It says, warning of right-wing insurgency. And reading through the article, this is after a drag to the left. Just explain a little bit more for us.
Yeah, so this is Peter Cruddas, who's one of the Conservatives' largest recent donors, and he suggested that the party is at risk from a right-wing insurgency, particularly from Reform UK, claiming the party's been dragged to the left and it is no longer a party of the centre-right. I'm not necessarily in agreement with Peter Cruddas there, but I think what he's alluding to is there's been this recent Observer opinion poll which shows that the Reform UK, which is obviously the successor to the Brexit Party, has gone up 2 points in the polls and now sitting at 8%, which is more or less on par with the Liberal Democrats. And the survey indicates a little bit further that around 23% of the 29 Conservative voting electorate would vote for reform, and also 11% of the Labour 2019 vote. So it's an interesting statistic. I think what it points to, rather than being a kind of right-wing insurgency, but I could be wrong, is that people are feeling, increasingly politically homeless. Nigel mentioned something there, really important word, the word courage. And I think that's probably what's lacking, actually, is the two mainstream parties seem to be a little bit like they've run out of steam. So I think there are a lot of people kind of looking at where else they might place their vote. Whether or not that's a kind of insurgency from the right or whether it's from the left, I think remains to be seen. But I think there is this sense that the political parties do lack the courage to tackle some of the big problems that we face, and that they are looking to the smaller parties. Now, whether our two-party system will allow that kind of breakthrough, and obviously we're a little bit away from the election time yet, remains to be seen. But I think it is, I think it's good when the parties are kind of worried a little bit, because I think it makes them listen and think a little bit more clearly to how to govern better, really.
And moving on, Nigel, there, looking at the Telegraph, this is a warning to Labour, well, its leader, Sir Keir Starmer particularly, who's a big champion of this, taxing private schools. But the warning here is that it could worsen inequalities in education. What's your take?
Yeah, this is a warning from Sir Peter Lample of the social mobility charity, the Sutton Trust, and he's written a piece co-authored by Graham Brady, the Tory backbench shop steward. What they're saying is that private schools shouldn't pay VAT. What should happen is they should be opened up to lower income families. I mean, the real issue here, the reason that Keir Starmer wants to impose VAT on private schools is simply for fairness. I mean, why should the taxpayer be subsidising the choices people make about their children's education? So, if you like, it makes a level playing field. But I think you're going to hear an awful lot more of this from the private sector, because obviously they're worried about their income. It's going to cost them a lot of money.
And Mo, time is going against us, but let's just quickly go through this next story in the Mail on Sunday. So Strep A crisis pushing parents into the private sector to see private GPs.
Yeah, well, I mean, Wes Streeting kind of suggesting people, we use the private sector more is one thing, but this is a story about private doctors being inundated from parents, particularly in relation to Strep A, and paying up to £176 for a single consultation because they can't get an appointment with the NHS. A condition that can be quite easily resolved with antibiotics if it's caught in time, but of course people aren't getting the appointments in time. And the article quotes, several of these private doctor kind of consultancy agencies who say that their inquiries have been up by about 80% in the last months.
Okay, thank you so much indeed, Mo. And Nigel, thank you as well. We will come back to you again to go through more of today's story. So don't go too far, and I'll see you after this very short break.